healthgod.com. Today I'm with...
My name's Anastasia. I'm a dental student.
We're here to talk about tooth decay from a diet aspect and the wearing down of the enamel with the toothbrush. I believe that the tooth decay starts from the inside because the tooth receives its nourishment from the blood. The elements of the blood come from what we drink, what we eat, the air we breathe, etc. The causes of the teeth decaying are things like breakfast, artificial feeding as an infant meal, all those formula milks, in the embryo stages, as you're a baby, your mama and what she eats in her diet. You want to elaborate on that? The embryo.
Sure can. All right. So, even like you were saying, from your tooth development starts from birth, like from before birth. It starts in development. So in utero, when mom is pregnant, one of the first, when your embryo is formed, you start off in 3 layers. You have the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm layer. The ectoderm layer forms first. That layer has complete central nervous system. So your brain, your nerves, basically like your arteries, everything on the outside of you, including your teeth, is formed first, which lets us know that if those things are formed first, the decisions made very, very early in pregnancy and fetal development by mom can affect the baby's teeth early on in development. So when those cells are forming in development, it's going to be formed from the things that are mom's diet.
Right. Also, highly refined foods, refined sugars. You know, most of our foods in the store are processed, white sugar. You want to elaborate on that and roll that, please?
White sugar and stuff. Okay. Cool. All right. So, like you said, whenever everybody knows, they say when you get cavities, they tell kids to stay away from candy. They tell kids to stay away from candy because that's where the cavities are coming from. Pretty much that's all they say. Stay away from candy. That cavity comes from candy. And like as I've seen in clinic, there's several kids and adults that don't like candy. They don't eat candy and they still have cavities. So obviously that just dispels that myth right there. It does not come from candy. Cavities does not come from candy. Not that it doesn't, but it can, but it's not the only source. It is not the primary source. Actually, the primary source right now is juice and soda.
Juice and soda.
Juice and soda.
Artificial sugars.
Artificial sugars.
And most soft drinks have carbon dioxide in them and are already fermented products.
Right. So the reason that those things are going to cause tooth decay and cavities is because bacteria is going to feed off of anything that's basically a sugar source. Anything that would feed bacteria will cause a cavity in your mouth. Candy is not the only source of sugar. Milk has sugars.
Right.
Juice has sugars. Bread, the glucose that's in bread breaks down. As soon as it's broken down in the body by anything in the body, it immediately is broken down into 2 sugars. So anything that's composed of sugar will cause a cavity, and that's simply because combined with you not brushing as regularly as you should be. So say you're eating some bread, and we all know you eat bread, it forms that dough ball. That dough ball is going to have little pieces that get stuck in between your teeth. You don't brush it out by the end of the day or the next morning. You go to sleep for 8 hours at night. That's 8 hours that you have this sticky bacteria food basically sticking in between your teeth. The bacteria will eat on it for that entire 8 hours. And like I was telling you earlier, any organism that eats, it has to come in this way and come out the other way. So they take it in, they also poop it out. Now when the bacteria eat and process things and poop it out, it's going to poop out straight acid. Their waste material is highly, highly, highly acidic. So basically you have a little acid pool sticking in between your teeth, and that acid will eat a hole in your tooth. Now that will be exacerbated and made even worse if you come behind and wash that bread out or wash your mouth. The first thing you do when you wake up in the morning after the bread been sitting there for 8 hours between your teeth, and you drink some apple juice. harmless, right? Harmless apple juice for breakfast. Or some people, I know kids who drink soda for breakfast, and people who wake up in the morning and drink soda for breakfast. Now, why is this worse? Because anything you're gonna drink that's acidic, like soda, or highly sugary, like some type of juice that's not watered down, is gonna lower the pH in your mouth. So you lower the pH in your mouth down to, let's say, a pH of 3, which is highly acidic. Why is that bad? You already have the acid, the little acid spot from the bacteria eating all day. Then you've lowered the pH, so now you're making it worse.
What about your saliva glands secreting alkaline quality
To combat that.
To neutralize the acids?
That works. Now that is true. So that's one of the functions of your saliva is a buffer. So a pH buffer. It's above now. You did take that sip of that soda or the juice or whatever. You lower your pH down to 3. It takes the saliva 20 minutes to buffer back up to normal pH. So you're basically 20 minutes of that juice lowered your pH down to 3. So you're sitting in an acidic environment, your teeth, for 20 minutes. So that's what I was getting to. So what I do tell parents, if they're gonna drink juice, if you're gonna drink soda or anything like that, drink the whole can at one time, down it in one shot, because that's one 20-minute recovery period you have to deal with. Versus you drink a sip of juice and then 30 minutes later you drink the other half a can. That's 2 20-minute periods you have to deal with. And every 20-minute period you have to deal with, that's more chances that you can wear a hole in your tooth and get a cavity.
Another cause is vitamin C deficiency. A lot of people are not getting enough vitamin C. What you think about that?
Definitely. One of the biggest things that vitamin C does in your mouth is it's needed for collagen synthesis, which you need that to make for your gums to be healthy, strong, tight, and firm. Because the first sign of poor oral health and poor gums is going to be red, flabby, loose gums. And that's the looseness and the flabbiness is from not having enough collagen, because you want it to be tight. You want your gums to hold to your teeth, right?
What about the brownness you see on the gums? What you think about that?
That is nothing.
That's you?
No, the brown on your gums is just melanin.
Okay,
it's just melanin.
All right.
It's just
y'all know
melanin.
The brownness on your gum is melanin.
It's melanin. So if you have melanin in your gums, be happy. Melanin is wonderful for you. It's very protective. So the more you have in your gums, the better.
They done some experiments on some monkeys, because monkeys are almost identical with us with teeth. And they were causing fermentation in their mouth. They were injecting microorganisms and feeding it to them, and it didn't cause any cavities. It didn't cause periodontitis.
Periodontitis.
And long as their diet was normal, but when they wasn't on a normal diet, it worked. So what you think about that?
Okay. I think that experiment kind of supported exactly what's going on in the body and with periodontal disease or any type of oral health at all. Everything has an internal cause. Nothing is going to happen if your internal is healthy.
You can't drive on healthy tissues.
Yeah, right. So
nothing because it exists in an alkaline
right.
state.
If somebody's in an alkaline state, the body's in an alkaline state, you have all the vitamins you need, you have everything you need, you're in good health. So if internally you're in good health, and say you're not brushing your teeth as well, and let's say you have, like they did in experiments, a lot of bacteria in the monkey's mouth, and they did not get periodontal disease or what cavities, were they checking for cavities or periodontal disease?
They were checking for both.
Both. All right, so you had, with the monkeys, they put all the bacteria in there, but the monkeys did not get cavities and they didn't get periodontal disease. So that goes to show us that, number one, bacteria is not the main cause of cavities or periodontal disease, at least not alone. They play a role, but not alone. You have, in order for you to have periodontal disease, and you could just say cavities as well, it takes two things. You're going to have bacterial, and you're going to also have to have a susceptible host, which means the organism that you're talking about, being you, the monkey, the person, whoever you're talking about, they have to be susceptible, which means they have to be how do you call it? They're not going to be an optimal, you know, they're not going to have all their vitamins. They're not going to be optimally
They're gonna be
healthy. They're going to be.
Right. So before we got on, I guess we would say the Europeans died. Before the Native Americans, there was an author named George Catlin, and he was writing about. He wrote a lot of literature about Indians, and he spent a lot of time with them. And at museums where they were dead, he would look into the dead skulls of the Indians, and their teeth would still be healthy and would not be decayed or rotten, and a lot of them. But after they started to take on a conventional diet of the European, then their teeth start to rot and decay just like everyone else that we're experiencing now in modern time. George Catlin and the Indians before the European diet.
So I say that matches up perfectly with what I explained earlier about the refined sugars and just sugars. Anything that's going to turn into sugar in your mouth is going to be harmful. See, in the old literature, the Indians, they weren't eating that way. They're not eating these breads. They're not eating these carbs. They're not eating anything refined. They're eating what their source of starch was maize and corn, which is completely different structure than bread. So, or any sugar of that form. So that would align perfectly with why their teeth were in such good health. And you have to think about it, back in the day, they didn't have toothbrushes either.
Right, exactly. So just like animals,
didn't have toothbrushes and their teeth were fine.
Don't have no toothbrushing, and often after hunting and looking in the mouths of dead animals, their teeth are still strong. It's not decayed. It's still there. Remember, animals rip meat. They eat all type of dead meat that ferment, and they still have healthy teeth and a clean mouth, because what? All fights clean itself. Your anus, your nostrils, your mouth, it all is a self-cleaning mechanism.
And they're eating exactly what they were supposed to be eating.
Right.
So
exactly.
The things that an animal is going to eat in nature.
And these are the wild animals, not the domesticated animals.
They're driven by instinct. Their instinct is telling them what they're eating or not, because those are the requirements of the things that their body needs. We are not driven by instinct to eat anymore. You cannot drop us in the woods and let us, and most people wouldn't know what things to eat and what things not to eat. So we're going off of these dietary standards. We're going off of the rules that people tell us to eat. You know, like you said, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And they tell us for breakfast, you eat a big bowl of cereal and milk, or you eat some eggs and grits and bacon. And we're following dietary rules that aren't meeting our requirements, our health requirements. You don't need any of these things to be healthy. Technically, you only need whatever your essential vitamins are and your essential salts are.
The 12 organic salts,
right.
Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, those things are important. Most things you shit in the toilet. It's feces. You don't even use it. What about mercury and combining with phosphoric acid in the bones and leaving it in the form of oxide of calcium? It's been said that in medical and dental literature that there was no sign of syphilis in the third stage before the use of mercury. So how does mercury get into the body when y'all use mercury?
So, I guess you didn't tell it. I don't even know what they're going to tell us. I can only tell you what they told us.
Right, what they told you.
What they tell us in school. So they have, whenever we put a silver filling, so everybody knows you get a silver filling, which is technically amalgam, which just means it's a mix of different types of metals. Mercury is one of the things in there. When the amalgam is mixed and ready to put into the tooth that you took the cavity out, and now you're filling it back up, you have to press it in there, and we call it packing. So you're packing and pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing, and packing the material down into a compound, instead of just being air, you want to I don't know what you call this word, condense it. So while you're condensing it, the air from the mercury gas is being released. So you push it down and you're releasing the mercury gas. So we'll come behind with a suction while we're condensing and suction that air. But But that's how really they're saying most of the mercury should enter the body stream at that point, either probably by inhalation. Mostly I would say probably by inhalation whenever you're on condensation. So when you're condensing it, when you place it, also whenever you take the filling out. When you're taking it out, you're disrupting the surface of the mouth, and again, you're letting the mercury gas escape. But while it's in that condensed form, you know, that gas shouldn't be, once it's set after 24 hours, that gas should no longer be released.
What role does a toothbrush play in wearing down the enamel and starting to cause pyorrhea?
So the toothbrush and wearing down the enamel, like I tell all my patients from the beginning, at their very first appointment, I ask them what type of toothbrushes are they using. Like, are you using a hard, medium, or soft toothbrush? And pretty much I can tell if they've been using a hard toothbrush for years. You can tell, you can see the signs of it.
How you can tell?
So you see, you can see this white area right here. That white area is distinguished from this darker gray area. The darker gray area is your dentin, which is soft, and it's going to be more yellow. This is your nerve right there. But this white area here is the enamel, which is the outer coating of your tooth, which is super, super hard. It's harder than bone. It's more solid than bone. It's just really, really hard. So naturally, your enamel tends, if you look at it, you can see it gets thinner and thinner once you get to the base of the tooth. Like right here is your gums. So this is your gums that you can see. So the enamel closest to the edge of your gums, you can see how thin it is compared to up here. You have about 1.5 millimeters of thickness here, and this is like not even a millimeter, smaller than a millimeter.
So vigorously brushing
at the gum line over years
can destroy the teeth.
In that area only.
In that area only. Okay.
In that area only.
Okay.
Because it's thin there. Because here's the thing. Once you brush through that little thin layer of enamel, you're at dentin. Dentin is soft. You're going to keep on going for it. You can keep on seeing. And you can look it up. If you look up attrition, ATTRITION, you can Google pictures of attrition, and it'll show you exactly what it is. It looks like a cavity, but there's no decay in it, and that's how you know it's not brown. There's no decay at all. It's smooth surface, the same way as they say the Grand Canyon was formed by the water flowing. It's the same thing. Years and years and years of hard toothbrush, and on top of that, the toothpastes we use nowadays.
Right. All the chemicals in it.
Not the chemicals. The pumice.
And what's the pumice?
So in certain toothpastes, they have like a gritty effect. Have you ever, messed with one of those? Like, some toothpastes are gritty. They have like little sand pieces or something. Like little sand pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
It's basically acting like sandpaper. You got sand, and then you got a hard toothbrush, and you rubbing sand against your tooth.
Okay.
On a thin layer of enamel. It's going to wear through that in a couple years. And once you wear through that, that's a go. You can keep going because the dentin is super soft. Probably not going to happen towards the top of your teeth because you have 1.5 millimeters of enamel. It's hard to work. So if you're going to use traditional toothpaste and traditional toothbrush, soft toothbrush, and toothpaste that does not have the gritty sandy, like I want to say AIM toothpaste, even though I usually recommend toothpaste at all, but the AIM toothpaste is one that doesn't have the grit in it. It's just a smooth gliding surface. Okay. And actually what I tell my patients is don't use
necessary that we brush our teeth every day.
It is not necessary that you brush your teeth every day.
Okay.
I say that, we can't tell our patients this because most patients usually don't follow our directions.
Right.
So technically, you only have to disrupt the biofilm. So I didn't talk about a biofilm. Everybody has a biofilm in their mouth. You wake up in the morning from not brushing your teeth all night, and you have like a slick feeling on your teeth. You wake up in the morning, you got like a goo feeling, like just slimy. You just feel like you need to brush your teeth when you wake up in the morning. That's the beginning formation of a biofilm.
Okay.
If you leave that alone and don't brush it away, in 48 hours, it'll start to house bacteria.
Depending on what you eat.
Depending on the bacteria. And
Right.
how's in bacteria? First of all, everybody has bacteria.
I'm talking about what, because there's healthy bacteria, right?
Right. So
Okay.
it could be good. So
Okay.
housing the bacteria is not necessarily a bad thing because it depends on what bacteria you have in your mouth. If you
But
have,
would it be worse if your food is you eating something that ferments fast? Like say
Yes.
meat ferments right after the animal is
Right.
killed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As well, fruit ferments the slowest. I often use fruit as a form of cleaning my teeth also. You know what I'm saying?
Orange peel.
Things I want to focus on. While children often have bad teeth, my son, he goes to daycare, and you know the daycare menu has dairy, and dairy plays a role in, you know, if you get too much calcium from dairy, which is in milk, cause osteoporosis. And what is that in the teeth?
Okay. I like to think, like what I tell my patients, whenever my patients come to me and I notice that they're having, they have bone loss, so they've had like their gums receded a little bit, and you can see their roots. So once you start to be able to see somebody's roots, you know that the bone that their teeth was sitting in has dropped down a little bit. So that means they're losing bone. Then I have pictures of that too. They're losing bone. That is a sign for me, you know, they're having bone loss in the dental world. This is called periodontal disease, which peri means around, donal means tooth, and bone. So basically bone loss of the bone around the tooth. First thing I always ask them is about their dairy consumption. So I always ask them how much milk they're drinking. How do you know, do they like milk? Or they always like milk and dairy products?
Milk and cereal always
Milk
together.
and cereal always together.
Two co-conspirators.
And what I found, like I was telling you about those 3 ladies who all had bad periodontal disease, very kind of severely. Some in their 60s, 50s, late 40s to early 60s, and they're losing teeth. They're losing teeth, and people think it's normal to start losing your teeth at 40, 50 years old to have no more bad teeth. They think that is normal. It's not normal. So like I said, I always ask them about their dairy consumption because most of these women also have osteoporosis. Not all of them, but a couple of them diagnosed. Pretty much know about that in the rest of their body as osteoporosis. But when it goes on in the mouth, they categorize it as periodontal disease and treat it as something completely different, when technically it's just the same thing in my eyes. So how does dairy play a role in that? If you notice, like I think the U.S. and Europe are the
biggest
dairy consumers in the world. Like the 2 countries with the highest dairy consumption. Just so happen that the 2 countries with the highest rates of osteoporosis are also the U.S. and Europe. So if your doctors and everybody's out here telling everybody drink milk, drink milk, drink milk, you need it for your bones, you need milk for strong bones, and everybody with osteoporosis, these patients that I talk to that have osteoporosis, they are drinking milk all day because they think they have to drink milk to fix the osteoporosis to get the calcium. And it's making it work, but they have osteoporosis. It's not getting better. So how is it working?
Too much calcium, you need lime and sunshine.
So they tell us that the dairy, you need the dairy for the calcium. Number 1, let's dispel that myth. The only reason that dairy has calcium in it is because it's fortified. Calcium is bad as well, but why is dairy such the focus here? I say dairy because once you get, once you overdo it on dairy, you have a lot of dairy in your body. Dairy tends to turn very, very acidic once it gets in the stomach.
And that's secreted as mucus. It's
right.
Secreted as
and
pus.
That gives you mucus. That gives you pus. That's going to give you sinus infections.
So most of your respiratory organ disorders come from dairy consumption.
Because it's one of the highest forms of mucus. Why? What is mucus?
Mucus is acid. Acids from the food. The food turns to acid toxins.
All right. So here we go. Good. So we got dairy, which turns into acid in the stomach. Mucus is your body's way to try to buffer that acid down. So buffer the pH of the acid back to normal. And the way your body buffers pH is by what? Right. Anything acidic is going to have a lot of positive hydrogen ions. So a lot of H+, a lot of H+, a lot of H+. So the way that body cancels that down is going to need something basic to come back and like buffer it back down. So the basic thing it uses is calcium. So when your body needs to buffer the pH back down, so say you got an influx of 1,000 made up units of acid, and your body needs to buffer that back down, it's gonna pull 1,000 units of calcium somewhere to buffer it back down. It's pulling that calcium from where? Your bones. It's pulling the calcium from your bones, i.e., eventually you get holes in your bones, you get spongy bones, you get osteoporosis, and they break. So same thing in the mouth, you're gonna get weak bones, spongy bones in the mouth, periodontal disease, and literally the bone, when you take the tooth out and you look down in the bone that it's sitting in, I couldn't even shave and make the bone smooth because it was so brittle and it just looked like a sponge. And she's not even diagnosed as osteoporosis.
That's crazy.
She's not even diagnosed. So I'll tell her, dairy, cut it out. Cut out the dairy. Just cut disease in the bone loss is nothing. It's also the number one reason why people lose their teeth. So like you're saying, everybody thinks it's normal to just lose, your teeth get loose when you get to be 90 years old, 80 years old, 70 years old, and they just fall out. That's periodontal disease. That is periodontal disease. Your bone resorbs and retracts away so much. You can follow this, look on this little thing. You start up here. It keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going until there's no more bone to hold your tooth in.
Okay.
And now it's wiggly. At this point, it's wiggly.
Right.
And it's gonna fall out. Right. That's why you lose your teeth when you get older. You don't have to lose your teeth when you get older if your bone around your tooth stays strong. You keep the bone around the tooth strong, you keep the tooth. No dairy, no refined processed foods.
So tooth decay is basically evidence of physical deterioration, period. And this John with Health Panaceas. Thank y'all for watching.